And welcome to another Cardinals Nest here on HBC TV 25. I'm Dean Beckman, along with our Sports Information Director, Donnie Netto. And today we welcome Brother Frank Carr to the program. And Donnie, normally we have either an athlete or a coach on the program, but today it's a day of firsts here on the Cardinals Nest. Brother Frank, you've never been on the Cardinals Nest before.
No.
And Donnie, I don't think we've ever had a Christian brother or an athletic liaison on the program before, right?
It's going to be fun. I've got a few things that I've got up my sleeve for Brother Frank, and I think the important thing here is just kind of it's neat to just get another perspective about Cardinal athletics, and you know, I know Brother Frank has a lot to talk about in terms of what he sees from the Cardinal athletic program. So I'm very excited to just kind of sit down and chat with Brother Frank and kind of pick his brain a little bit.
Right, absolutely. So Brother Frank will begin, and I think so for a lot of our viewers, they may not have an understanding of what a Christian brother is. A lot of people who have worked at St. Mary's over the years know what a Christian brother is, but maybe just to inform our viewers, what does a Christian brother do? How does it differ from a priest? All of that.
Yeah. Well, as a brother, I'm a member of a religious community. We live in community, we pray together, we eat together, we even go on picnics together when we have them. But our institute is committed to education. We are not ordained. All of the members of our institute are laymen. And we've invited a lot of folks like you in to join us in that mission of LaSalle education. So we are committed to educating young people, although we've moved into the university and sometimes adult ed, but it's all education.
Mm-hmm. So, and you've been a Christian brother for over 55 years, right? 56 years now. So maybe take us back to, I want to kind of go way back to even before you were a Christian brother, and kind of tell us about your upbringing, where you're from, and a little bit about how you got into sports, because now you're the sports liaison or the athletic liaison for St. Mary's. Before that, I know you were an athletic director at the high school level, so you have a pretty extensive sports background. So maybe tell us how that all got started way back when.
Yeah, I never participated in sports myself, but I was always a great fan and always around sports. I grew up in a small town in northern Michigan in the Upper Peninsula, and the brothers ran that school. So I got to know the brothers there. So when I graduated on May 30th, 12 days later, I was at St. Jan Hall at St. Mary's to enter the formation program of the brothers. And that's where it all started. I spent 4 years at St. Mary's that time, and then I was assigned to Hill High School, which became Hill Murray, and that's where I was athletic director for 14 years. I was there for a total of 19. It just happened that at that time we were in the process of withdrawing brothers from some of the schools, merging schools, and every brother, when I got to Hill, was assigned to be a kind of a liaison, a moderator of a team. Well, I was assigned to wrestling, which I knew absolutely nothing about, but I started writing articles for the local newspaper, and they got a lot of publicity. So the next year, the football coach asked if I would do the same for football. And as time moved on and we started shifting and then eventually merging the school with Archbishop Murray, they asked me to serve as athletic director. So I had to call a lot of people to learn about what athletic directors do. I did that for 14 years. And eventually some people called me to find out how to be an athletic director. So it's kind of gratifying from that standpoint. Then I came back to St. Mary's and worked at St. Mary's Press for 5.5 years before being asked to serve in province administration. The brothers have what we call districts. And at that time, there were probably 7 districts in the United States. And so I was the assistant provincial, the second in charge, if you are in charge of anything. I did that for 5 years, and then we merged 3 provinces and became the Midwest district. And I was asked by the new provincial to serve in his team. So for 6 more years, I was assistant provincials of the Midwest, provincial of the Midwest district. And at that time, the Superior General, on the recommendation of the brothers, appointed me to be the provincial. So I served for 10 years. And when that was finished, the brothers said, go away, get a rest. So I did take a year off, and then I came to St. Mary's and started working at St. Mary's Press, got involved with athletics at the university, and I actually talked to Coach Winnicky and Coach TJ yesterday and said, how did this happen? I mean, I don't remember anything in particular. We think it was the retreats, the baseball team retreats. And I helped with that. I cooked for them. And then I had them over for dinner, which led to a lot of athletic dinners. And here we are today.
Now, I know Donnie is itching to get up his sleeve to ask you some of those questions. One more for me, though, Brother Frank, and that is, at what point in your life, and was there a turning point where you had the calling of being a Christian brother? At what point did you discern that that was the life for you?
Yeah, I think in high school. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to be in journalism, actually, and to teach that. And at one point, my dad had a small bakery, and I went in. I had talked to the brothers, and I went into the bakery, and I said, Dad, I'd like to consider becoming a brother. And he said, no, you're not mature enough. Okay, thank you, Dad. So we waited. I talked to the brothers again. We waited a couple months, and then he said, okay, try it out. He was ready for me to come home in 2 weeks, and 56 years later.
Right. And in your
But
current
it was in
role,
high school.
Right. And you currently are at St. Mary's Press as Director of Mission, right? So
Correct.
You're continuing in that role.
Yeah, and in the interim, Brother William, I think this was because of that Sister Jean from Loyola, he thought, well, maybe we should have a brother who's kind of the chaplain.
Right.
And so I do have a job description calling me the minister or a chaplain, and I don't like those terms yet. Brother Roger and I are working on this, trying to figure out with Brian Sisson, the athletic director, what our role can be to be of most assistance to the coaches and the student athletes.
And that actually would be my first question: is right now, heading into the new leadership of Brian Sisson, what do you see your role as being? I know it really kind of started out with the baseball program.
Yes.
You were the liaison with Coach Winnicky and Coach Oakes, but now you've kind of expanded and really taken the entire athletic department under your wing, so to speak.
Yeah.
What do you see this vision of what you can provide for our athletic programs?
I hope we can provide opportunities for our young people to do what baseball and women's hockey have done in terms of just having a weekend together. It's not a spiritual, heavy religiosity kind of retreat, but it's a time of getting to know one another, learning to work together, even getting to know their coaches better. And I think we can be helpful with that. I do the cooking. They seem to like that. I've already scheduled all the winter sports for a team dinner, except one, and he promised to get me a date pretty soon. But we try to get all the kids over to the brother's house. Sorry if I said kids. Just to have the experience of seeing that we live in a normal place, we're normal people, we have our prayer schedule, we have our meal schedule, and so forth. But we're human beings. So that's what we're trying to help the kids and young people understand.
You know, I know you've mentioned a couple times now these retreats, and I know that Coach Winnicky and Coach Moore are very fond of them, and they really think it's important. Kind of explain exactly what that all entails, because it's a weekend that they get together with you and Brother Pat, correct?
Yeah, Brother Pat really runs the retreat part, and he just tries to provide them with opportunities amongst themselves, primarily, to kind of do some interior research on themselves and then talk with one another about that. So they get to know one another better. They get to know themselves better. Last year I was there for the big session, and even the coaches all participated in expressing the things that were going through their heads right now and what they were dealing with. So you hear things from student athletes that you go, wow, they're struggling with some stuff that maybe we can be of help. And we're not going to push ourselves on them, but if we can be of help and they know us well enough, maybe they'll come.
You know, I think one of the things that you mentioned just a little while ago too was that the student athletes, the students in general, need to realize that yes, you're a Christian brother, but you're still a human being. You're just a person, just like everybody else. And I know that you've really made this tradition. You've made this tradition of these dinners. And again, you mentioned you have all the teams over for a meal, and I know that they get to request what they want. What's the most popular dish that they have you make?
Well, depending on the team, we have an open-faced Italian sandwich that started in St. Paul. Italian meat and on bread with the good spaghetti sauce that is Brother Pat's recipe, by the way. Cheese and pasta, salad. A number of them like grilled chicken or pork chops. Some like spaghetti and meatballs because it's a pre-game meal and they want the pasta and the meatballs. And I try to do most of the things myself, although I'm starting to get lazy and buy some of the ingredients already prepared. But it's fun to have them. It's a lot of work, but it's fun to have them over.
And I know too, when it comes to the cooking thing, Brother Frank, that you expand your talents even beyond the athletic department, right? I know you've helped out with some of the Soul mission trips and the fundraisers that they have, the big spaghetti dinner fundraisers. So you really get involved in other places on campus too, not just the athletic department.
You mentioned Soul, and they just had an auction in. The group that sings for the 9 o'clock Mass on Sunday has bid our meal the last 3 years. So we just set that date. Now I have to talk to them about what that menu will be.
And I actually competed against you this year because I offered a Super Bowl party for students. So I've got about 6 students coming over for the Super Bowl this year too. So that should be fun. Getting back though, as you get to know some of these student athletes and the coaches too, I think you touched on it earlier. Many of them are, just they're young adults, right? And they're dealing not just with the pressures of being a student, not just the pressures of being an athlete, but the pressures of life and pressures of being 18 to 22 years old, depending. And so it's nice, I think, to have a liaison such as yourself to sort of help them through and as needed talk through those things, or just be at events to support them, right? Is that kind of how you see your role?
I think that's most of what I do. I try to be at all their games and let them know that I'm there to support them. And sometimes I'll even talk to them after a loss, just to try to reinforce them and say, don't give up, don't get discouraged. But I try to get to all the events. Might leave early sometimes, but I'm there for most things, and some of the brothers are too.
For complete transparency, he seems to know all of the athletes by recognition. Right. I just like it to be known that there's a reason he does that. He makes me put together photo directories of every team so that he has faces to put with the names.
No one can make you do anything.
He makes me.
But thank you for doing that.
But I guess I was joking, but in reality, it really shows how much you want to be a part of this athletic community, because you want to know who these people are, and I think that's something that's very important. And I know that the student athletes, especially the baseball players, are extremely comfortable around you and really do consider you a part of that program. Yeah. And I know as you're trying to branch out to other programs, but I know that baseball especially, certainly holds a near and dear place in your heart.
I know them best, yeah. But thank you for those photo sheets. I have a set in my office, I have a set at home, and when I leave a game, I thought, I didn't know that girl. So I go back and look through that sheet and figure out who she was, so the next time I can say, Sandy, nice game. Sometimes you have to fake your way through stuff like that.
That's right.
So we're going to take a short break here on the Cardinals Nest, but when we come back, we'll talk more with Brother Frank and kind of touch on all of the sports here at St. Mary's and get some of his input on that. So that's coming up next here on HBC's Cardinals Nest.
Be sure to check out US Golf TV, where you are going to see golf products that you have never seen before. You're also going to see golf tips from some of the leading instructors around the country that are truly changing the way people are teaching the game and challenging the status quo. Also, you're going to see fitness tips that are revolutionizing the way PGA Tour pros are training their body and swinging the golf club. If you want something different, if you're looking for some new information, US Golf TV has it. Be sure to check your local listings. US Golf TV, we've got you covered.
And welcome back to the Cardinals Nest here on HBC. Dean Beckman, Sports Information Director Donnie Netto, and Brother Frank Carr is joining us on the show. Brother Frank is our athletic liaison at St. Mary's, and as Donnie pointed out before we went to break, your relationship with the athletic department really started kind of with the baseball team, and I had a little chat with Coach Winicky the other day, and Nick said, you know, could you ask him why he falls asleep at baseball team dinners?
Well, no, this is the Florida trip.
Yeah.
After we have been at the field all day and come home, and one of us cooks, sometimes me, one of the other guys up my two. Then I sit at the dining room table with my computer in front of me, and I really do fall asleep. So they sit there and wait for me to doze off.
Right.
So they can all make noise and laugh at me when I wake up.
And who knows what's going on social media during that time,
Yeah, that's
right?
exactly
You have to
right.
give Coach Oakes credit because he told me the exact same story, the exact same way this morning. So that is funny. But it's kind of neat that, you know, Coach Winicky does take you on their Florida trip, and you know, you certainly have some responsibilities when you're down there. But you know, again, it just kind of shows that they're welcoming of you into their program just the way you're welcoming them with those retreats. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, they really are the ones who welcome me. I said to him yesterday, how did this start? He said, no, I don't remember either. I think that because of the retreats, and then I invited the team over for our meal, and just started, I was at all their games. I didn't travel with them that first year, but then he said, do you want to go on the bus with us? And there is a story from last year. I was supposed to be at a board meeting in Memphis, and because of the way the schedule had shifted, because of the late winter, we had a couple games scheduled during that board meeting. So on the bus coming back from a game, he said, hey guys, brother says he's got to be in Memphis for a board meeting next week. What do you think of that? No, he shouldn't go. And honestly, I called in instead of traveling to Memphis.
That's a pretty good impersonation of
That
Coach
was not
Winicky.
bad at all. That was not bad at all. Speaking of the Florida trip and your cooking, the first time you went to Florida, you weren't very happy with the utensils they had down there.
correct.
So, from what I hear, you fly your own pots and pans and things down to Florida for that trip. Is that correct?
I just shipped them through St. Mary's Press Shipping. So that we have enough frying pans and pots and certain utensils. Yeah, I did that. I it's a little out of character, but but then the room we were in this past year had more equipment. So I didn't have to take everything out of the box, but I'm going to send it again. I kept my list, and I'm going to send it again in case we get to that first room where they didn't have enough frying pans to do anything.
I wanted to ask you, I know you had a good relationship with our past athletic director, Nikki Fennern, and now we have a new athletic director in Brian Sisson. You've developed a good friendship, relationship with him as well. How do you see Brian's leadership, and what are the positive things you see Brian bringing to the athletic department?
I see him working very hard to get to know the territory. I mean, he visited every campus in the MIAC already. He's working very hard to get to know his coaches well, and gradually being in a situation where he can meet the young people. So I think that he's got some ideas of his own. He's been an associate athletic director in a couple other places. So he's had experiences that I think will benefit St. Mary's in the future. Very personable. I enjoy being with them, at games or wherever we are. So it's not hard to work with him at all. So I hope that's the same relationship that he has with all the coaches. I think for sure with Jen and Nick, the two associate athletic directors, it's a good relationship.
You know, the other thing, your experience as a former athletic director at the high school level, it's been valuable for St. Mary's because I know you've been on several of the hiring committees too. So you've had roles in hiring some of our coaches, and I think that's a nice additional way you get to know some of them. Of course, David Foley and Joe Fano, our new women's and men's basketball coaches respectively. You've gotten to know them over the past few months, and Brian Sisson as well on that search committee
so as
too.
they start, I have a little knowledge of them, and they're more comfortable saying hello and talking with me, because I just go up to the athletic office and bother Tony Winter and walk around to see who's around.
How have you seen St. Mary's athletics change in any way since the time that you've started to get involved? How would you say it's different today than when you first entered the offices there?
Yeah, I actually first entered St. Mary's as a board member. I was on the board of trustees for 10 years, and I remember football came before the board. And I remember some of the board members saying, let's start winning the sports that we have now before we try to add something else. And I think that's been a goal for a long time. We're doing a great job forming young people. We just want to win more often on a more consistent basis. But, you know, they work very hard. I have no complaints about any of them. I think that together we're going to start moving in certain areas. We have some fresh young coaches, or not so young necessarily, but fresh coaches in their approach to working with the young people, bringing in new student athletes, new assistants. I'm very hopeful. I am very hopeful for St. Mary's athletics.
And as a faculty member, I know that the phrase student athlete, it gets thrown out there a lot. I think it's good for the public to know, for our viewers to know, the student comes first at St. Mary's, and it's very intentional, and that has always been the case, and I think that will continue to be the case. But we certainly want them to have an enriching, sort of all-encompassing college experience with the athletic portion too, right?
Yeah, and I think the coaches are insistent on the students paying attention to their schoolwork. I know that if I hear that someone's struggling, I'll go up and talk to her or him. Just say, you having problems with something? Maybe you should see a counselor or something like that. And they get help from one another. They're on top of one another and making sure that each other works on their academics as well as in sports.
I think a lot of the coaches take the pride in you know team GPAs that are 3.6, 3.7, you know, and that's important to them. And I know a lot of them have study tables. Our coaches are tireless workers, and there's no doubt about that. They are by far some of the hardest working people I know. And you know, as Brother Frank said, they want to win. There's nobody on the staff that doesn't want to win, and you know, they just have to continue to work hard to you know, to bring in the right combination of people to make that happen. And I think, as you said, Brother Frank, it's happening. It's just maybe not on the fast track that everybody wants. You know, you can't.
But the priorities are right.
Absolutely.
Academics is number one, and we want you to have a good experience with that. But then you can participate in sports. So I think we're on the right way. We're on the right track.
So now that we've got the seriousness out of the way, right? we tried to get Coach Winnicky and Oaks to give us some good stories on you, and certainly we got the one about you know, the one I do need to ask you about is your Florida stupor. So I'd like to tell you the story. I'd like to tell you the story of your Florida stupor.
Well, I don't know how this happens because I'm usually the first one who wakes up. But on that particular morning, I slept, and it must have been 10 minutes before we were supposed to leave the room, and I woke up and I said, what time is it? And they said, you have 10 minutes to get ready. So from that point on, they asked me, are you in a stupor today? Because that day I was. I didn't know where I was half the time, and they claimed that my pants were falling down as I walked down the stairs because I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so.
Okay, so that wasn't very fair. So let's just turn it around. You now have the stage to tell a story about Coach Winnicky or Coach Oaks.
Oh no, I'm not going there.
You see that, Coach Winnicky and Oaks? He's taking the high road, right? But I'll bet you have some, right?
Well, I might, but I have stories on other people too.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about another person in the athletic department. Tell us about this guy here, Donnie Netto. He used the word or the phrase earlier, kind of tireless work ethic, to describe the coaching staff. But I think we can use the same phrase to describe Donnie, right? I don't think anybody has any idea the hours that he puts in providing sports information to not only the coaches and the student athletes, but also the faculty, staff, and the public at large, right?
If you ever look at his game day, you know, Cardinal game day, it might be 12:15 in the morning when he posts that. but he's always in his office unless he's at a meeting. He's got the stats on his fingertips. I thank him as much as I can, not only for those photos.
He bribes me.
Those I do bribe him too. Yeah,
I got pretzels for you.
if you need the recipe for spicy pretzels, I can get it to you. But he really loves them. But yeah, honest, Dean, he's tireless and knows what he's talking about, and is, I think, very highly regarded in this conference.
A question I have for you is, what sport did you not know much about, but as you became more involved with the athletic department, you've grown both in knowledge and really in appreciation for?
Well, I never had gone to a swim meet in my life, so I appreciated that. As athletic director, we had a number of sports that in fact, we added a lot of girls sports in the high school level during my time as athletic director. So I was pretty familiar with most, but as I said, swimming and diving, and I have to go to more soccer games because I'm not always sure what they're doing. If track meets didn't last so long, I'd probably stay till the end.
And if you could get to all of the events, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, you can't be every place all the time. I don't know how he does it with several games going on at one time to get all the stats together.
But it's important. I think it's important that people see you at the events. And, I mean, I do. I see it every event, every time I'm walking in the rink or at the gym. Do you enjoy going to the events? Do you feel a sense of, I need to do this, or do you truly just enjoy to go?
I want to go. I want the young people to know that I'm there to support them. And in the meantime, as the baseball liaison, I'm supposed to be schmoozing with the parents, and so I try to get to know some of the other parents at other types of sports games, just so that they feel more comfortable and know that we're supportive of them as well as of their young people, of their children. So, yeah, I do. I enjoy it. If I'm not feeling well or I need to go home and cook supper or be at prayer or something like that, I'll leave. But I do it reluctantly, and I take my phone out when I get home so I can still follow what I'm missing.
Just a couple of minutes left here, Brother Frank, so about 2 more questions. And the first one I'd like to ask has to do with, you've been in education your whole life. You've worked with young people most of your life. What advice would you have to somebody who's graduating from high school and they're thinking about what they want to do in their life, with their life, and where they want to go and do that? What's some general advice that you can give based on your years of experience?
Yeah, talk to people. For sure, get advice from adults, but also from students that you knew in high school who have already graduated. Young people who are in college can give you great advice. But yeah, talk to people, listen carefully. Don't worry about choosing your major today, because things that you experience in college are going to say, maybe that's not for me. So just enjoy life, but be serious about what you're supposed to be doing. And that would be academics, and if you're an athlete, also sports.
Right, and I think the whole talking to people standpoint is you don't have to do these things on your own, right? I mean, really, everything in life, there's always somebody there that you can turn to.
We have lots of people you can turn to. I mean, parents, aunts and uncles, cousins, friends, brothers, SIDs, teachers, professors. Yeah, we have a lot of opportunity for our people to listen and learn and grow.
So one final question. How much longer do you want to keep doing this?
I think of that. I'm 74 now, but I don't feel like that all the time. There are moments, but yeah, I'd like to stay with it. It encourages me. I think it encourages the people that I work with and the young people that I support. So I'll stay with it as long as I'm healthy. My doctor surprises me by saying, yeah, for a fat guy, you're doing okay. And then he'll say, well, I didn't mean to say it like that, but I know what it means.
Donnie, we've been waiting a long time to get Brother Frank on the program. It was well worth the wait, right?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Thank you so much.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Brother Frank, for being on the Cardinals Nest. And thanks to you for watching. Tune in again for another Cardinals Nest right here on HBC.